everyone, welcome to the Pop Culture Yearbook. I am Captain Logan.
And I am TheRealManos.
Finally, we are bringing this show back. Manos, I don't think we have done Yearbook in a year and a half? Maybe longer?
We could do a year from the last year.
That's true! We could do a year that we skipped! Yeah. That would be amazing. Anyway, so welcome back finally to the Pop Culture Yearbook. Manos and I are planning on bringing this back and doing this twice a month again. And so once again, if you have never seen the show before, because I'm sure there are a lot of new subscribers that have never watched this show, what we do is we choose a year to time travel back to. We'll make the time traveling thing happen here in just a moment. We will be traveling back to a year, and we each chose a thing from that year, and we will each be discussing the interesting things that we decided to grab from that year. So, Manos, what year did we choose for today, sir?
Well, we took the Wayback Machine all the way back to 1945.
1945! Is this the earliest we've gone?
I think so. I think we've talked about doing a 40s show before, but I think this is the earliest I remember doing.
I know we've done some 60s, and I think we may have even done a 50s once, but I don't think we've ever gone back quite this far, or if we did, it was like, did we do a 20s or something?
No.
I don't think we did, yeah.
We haven't done.
So usually we will pick a year that's in at least one or both of our time spans, lifespans, because you know, Manos is a little older than I am, but usually we'll have a year where there were, you know, video games and TV and things like that. But going all the way back to 45, of course there are fewer of those things, and it's a very different landscape. So it's going to be really interesting going back to a year like that. And as we always do on the show, we're going to begin with a few things that happened that year. Of course, 1945, one of the most eventful years in American and world history. There are a million things that we could mention and talk about that happened in that year, all mostly under the umbrella of World War II ended. So, you know, you could talk about the occupation of Japan, and you could, you know, there's a million things that you could talk about. But I've compiled a list of a few things, and here they are. So, of course, the World War II ended, Roosevelt died, and Truman became president. We have, of course, the drop of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was the year that Hitler committed suicide. That was the year that the UN was created. That was the year that a U.S. bomber crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building. I forgot about that. And then in technology, that was the year that Arthur C. Clarke postulated the notion of a communications satellite. He thought of that before it happened. It was the year that Percy Spencer accidentally discovered the application for the microwave's use in the kitchen. That was the year that the microwave was invented for the purpose that we use it for now. It was, in that year, only 5,000 homes had televisions, Manos, and I really wonder what they were watching.
Probably Law and Order.
Like, what was being broadcast in 1945 when so few homes had a television and it was such a brand new invention? What in the world were we even broadcasting to them? I'd like to know.
What's funny is, I don't know if you've seen footage, but some of these TVs like had these giant consoles. Yeah. They were like a huge chair, like a giant wood block, and the screen was like this big. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like I assume there was a lot of news. Probably, yeah. But I don't know what else would have been shown.
It sounds like the opposite of the Batcave, you know, where you have like a giant screen and this. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that too, Manos, because it was also the first year that a general purpose computer was built, and it took up 1,800 feet of floor space. Popular films of that year included Anchors Away, The Paleface, The Lost Weekend, and Spellbound. Not a year I have seen very many movies from, Manos. Consider doing a film from that year, and I guess I'll go ahead and spoil this much about my thing. I did not pick a movie for this year. Popular music that year included the songs Sentimental Journey by Les Brown and Doris Day, Rum and Coca-Cola by the Andrews Sisters, of course, and Till the End of Time by Perry Como. Como, and it was a major year for literature. Popular books included Stuart Little, The Glass Menagerie, and Pippi Longstocking. And now we go to The Real Manos to see what he has chosen to talk to us about from 1945. Manos, regale us with your history of something from 1945.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Captain Logan. I actually did pick a film from 1945. It was cool because what I did was I went to that year online and went down the list and was like, oh, okay, I saw, and I've already seen this film a couple of times, House of Dracula. And House of Dracula is I think it's probably one of the last of the classic Universal films. Now, they went on and did more, but this was kind of the last hurrah for this era. And this one stars Lon Chaney, John Carradine, and let's see, who played the monster? I keep forgetting, because the monster was played by Glenn Strange at this point. Interesting thing is, I don't know how much you know about the Frankenstein monster. Frankenstein monster was played by a lot of guys after Boris Karloff, and like Bela Lugosi played him in Wolfman Meets Frankenstein, and Glenn Strange performed the character for a lot. Actually, I think after Lugosi did him. And you know what's interesting about Lugosi's version of the Frankenstein monster? Now, if you'd seen the movie Ed Wood, you would assume that Lugosi never played the monster, but he did. He before that he played Igor in Son of Frankenstein, and then he played the monster in the next film, which was Wolfman Meets Frankenstein. And you know how people... This is something that's interesting, because Lugosi was kind of in the shadow of Karloff during the later years of his career. Like, Karloff was just always more popular. Here's something really cool. You know, when people, like, imitate Dracula, they pretty much do the Lugosi Dracula.
Yeah.
But when people imitate, like, classic Frankenstein, you know, they usually do this. That was actually Lugosi. That was him.
Wow, interesting.
He did that. Karloff never did that. He played the movie. I think he played the monster twice, and he never did that.
And most people don't even know that he played the monster. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's hinted that he's doing that because he's nearly blind or completely blind, but it's never really picked up on. But yeah. So Lugosi kind of has the last laugh on that, actually. But Lugosi, unfortunately, isn't in House of Dracula. House of Dracula is actually kind of a direct sequel to House of Frankenstein. And what Universal was doing was that they pretty much figured out they had kind of a universe of, you know, monster movies here, you know, with the Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, blah, blah, blah. And somebody hit on the cool idea of putting them all in one movie, which was House of Frankenstein.
Which was called The Avenger. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's a thing that, you know, I thought of when The Avengers came out. I was like, when has anybody ever done this before? And I put these franchises together in a movie, and it's like, oh, yeah, the House series from Universal. House of Frankenstein is actually very, very good and very entertaining. It's not scary. Unless you're a little kid, but so Jason might think your son Jason might find it scary, but it's not really that scary. House of Dracula was more of a direct sequel to that one, and essentially it picks up a lot where it left off. A lot of monsters who were thought dead or were dead, you know, have kind of picked up on this. The film starts off with Dracula. He comes to this scientist. I have to look up his name, Franz Edelman, played by Onslow Stevens. He actually comes to the scientist hoping that through his medical experiments, he could actually cure him of being a vampire. This is the first time Dracula, I could think of, has wanted to rid himself of being a vampire. Normally he seems to be cool with it, but this time he wants out. And he's played by John Carradine, by the way, in this film. John Carradine was a big classic
Yeah, cool. I need to watch that. I have liked what I've seen of John Carradine.
Carradine, of course, the father of Bill from Kill Bill, David Carradine.
Yeah.
Let's see. His Dracula was interesting. He had a mustache and a top hat and a cape, actually. It was a very, very different look from Lugosi, actually. They didn't even try to copy Lugosi with this one. And he's still supposed to be kind of the same Dracula, which is weird because Dracula is dead. And I don't think they explained why he's not dead. Because he was staked in the original Dracula film. And in Daughter of Dracula, his daughter steals his body and burns it. So I don't know how he gets to being alive in House of Frankenstein.
Let me ask you this question, Manos. Do those movies really have much of a sense of continuity? And I'm sure I've asked you this before because I think you've done one of them in a prior yearbook. But like, is there very much callback at all?
Loosely, but not very good. It's like DC continuity, except worse.
Manos. You got to get your pot shots in there somewhere.
Yeah, actually, no. It makes DC look good, actually, to DC's credit. It's really bad as far as... Because they'll reference things, but they'll get it wrong. And sometimes, to make things confusing, they use a lot of the same actors in different roles from film to film.
Yeah.
Boris Karloff is in House of Frankenstein, but not playing the monster. He's playing an old new guy. And there's a guy named Lionel Atwell, who's like almost in all of these films as different people. So don't be too confused. Like, did this guy get killed last movie? Like, no, this is a different character. Well, okay. So, and it has to be of the time. Like, keep in mind, all these movies were like a year or two apart. Sometimes they were several years from each other. There's no video or internet or TV had just been invented by 45, so people had a loose memory of how these films were. Because they would be, the more popular ones would be shown over and over again.
Yeah.
But they go, I think, because back then people would misquote things all the time. Like people would say, "Play it again, Sam," and that's not exactly how that line was uttered in Casablanca. But everyone thought it was because, that sounds right. Now we have the internet, so we can always be accurate about everything.
Oh yeah, of course. Great. Yeah, that never happens now.
So, all right. While Edelman is trying to work on curing Dracula, which he's suspicious of him because he's Dracula, and I would be too. Another guy comes to his house, and it's the Wolfman. Who's been in the last few films, the Lawrence Talbot character, played by Lon Chaney Jr. And what's interesting about Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman character is the first time he becomes the Wolfman, he does it right in front of everybody behind a prison cell. He starts a ruckus and they throw him in the local jail. And, while they're talking to him and, he's telling them, hey, I'm a Wolfman, and they think he's crazy. Then he turns into a Wolfman right in front of them. So it gets that right out of the way. And he wants this man to cure him because science. And at the same time, we coincidentally uncover the monster who had been buried under the cave under his house. So this is starting to look to him like pretty serendipitous. Like he's got these three monsters coming to him at the same time. So he starts trying to figure out, what he can do for them and all. And there's a twist in the film that happens early on that I think, for my money, kind of wrecks the film. And this is a big spoiler for everybody. Edelman starts experimenting, and he gets some of Dracula's blood in him, and it doesn't turn him into a vampire, but it turns him into some kind of half human, half vampire maniac. And he kills Dracula, he stakes him in his coffin, and then he's killed. And there's like 30 more minutes of movie. I mean, it's House of Dracula, and he doesn't even make it to the climax, which is really, it's an odd choice. And then he becomes the main monster of the film because he becomes this insane person trying to kill everyone. Another interesting thing about the film is the Wolfman is cured in this movie, and since this is the last of the series, Wolfman gets kind of a happy ending.
Oh, that's cool.
There's actually a really wonderful scene where he feels like he's been cured, and he goes out into this balcony, and he watches the moon rise, which, by the way, it's a Universal movie. The moon is full, like, every night, apparently. So,
that's why the universe is so screwed up, Manos.
Yeah. But it's a really touching scene, and Lon Chaney Jr. is a pretty good actor, and I think he's fairly underrated. And he has a really wonderful moment where, he watches it, and, he's obviously kind of overcome with happiness because he's been, like, killed and killed and killed, and, it's just been driving him nuts. And the Frankenstein's monster, really doesn't do much in this movie. He's pretty much strapped to a table almost the entire film, and until it's time to trash the castle and bring everything down. And unfortunately, one of the things about the film is, when the scientist, finally meets his fate, and Lawrence Talbot escapes. He lives through this. And I hadn't even brought up Edelman's assistant, who in the trailers is pegged as the Hunchback, and it's like, it advertises like, oh, how many monsters is in this movie? It's like Dracula, and then Frankenstein, and then Wolfman, and it says the Hunchback, and the Hunchback in this movie is his nurse, and she's a pretty actress. She's just got a small hump right here, and they act like she's a monster.
That's hilarious. They just gotta get one more in there. You're like,
it's not nice. I mean, the trailer is not nice. It's like, hey, she's not a monster. She's got a disability. Leave her alone.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Leave her alone, movie trailer. Just because you want to bump up your numbers. But yeah, she and Talbot escape. And then, well,
hey, Manos, you know what that would be like? That would be like if we had like a list of superheroes for the Avengers and we put Coulson in there.
Yeah, it's like, that doesn't count. He's there. But what's frustrating is when as always, the giant castle house he lives in starts catching fire because of the fight that's going on. And,
gotta have that.
It crumbles down around Frankenstein's monster again. What's frustrating is it's the exact same footage of the exact ending of House of Frankenstein. I mean, it's the same shot even. They just reused the footage. Which is like, that's not the best note to go out on.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. But otherwise, if you're a fan of the Universal Monster movies, it is worth checking out. As long as John Carradine is in it, he's a pretty interesting Dracula. He's also in House of Frankenstein, but he's barely in it. And what's interesting is when Edelman goes crazy and starts killing people, it's actually the most effective scenes in the movie, which is weird. Like, who is this guy? And there's this great scene where he gets on this little horse and carriage with this guy that he's known for a while, and he's picked him up at night and he starts talking to him, and he just starts talking to him about what it'd be like to just kill someone. It's really, there's no music or anything like that. You just hear the horse clomping while they're walking, and the driver is obviously getting more nervous as he's talking to him. And it's a pretty effective scene. Yeah. It's probably the creepiest scene in the movie, and it's not any of the monsters. I don't know. It's just one of those films that probably has a better reputation than it deserves, because it's not a very well-written film. And it uses some, stock footage from the exact last movie. It's like that's like the next event. That's like ending the Age of Ultron, with the last shot from the last Avengers movie.
Yeah, that's like if you got through Age of Ultron and then you had to watch all the superheroes eating shawarma.
Yeah, and they're telling you it's a new time when they did it. It's like, no, man, that's the exact same footage.
Yeah, where's Vision? Seriously.
Let me bring it up on my phone.
Why can't we see Vision eating a sandwich?
Yeah. No, he had to go somewhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you remind me of Star Trek Generations, because it did that with footage from Star Trek 6. They had a Klingon ship that exploded, and it was the exact same shot, and that always cracked me up too, because not only was it the very next film, Manos, but there's also like 70, 80 years of history in between the two.
Yeah. That's why they lost so easily. Use updated material.
Yeah, they shouldn't have they shouldn't have gotten that army surplus bird of prey
that had blown up previously.
yeah, somebody hobbled it back together.
But it's if you're a completist, I definitely do recommend checking it out. It is fun, but it's not the best one. And also, oh, by the way, if you're especially a fan of the original Wolfman, this is pretty much the end of that. This is pretty much the end of his arc, for the most part, which started in Wolfman, and then moves to Frankenstein meets Wolfman, and then I think the House series, House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. I think that's 4, and yeah, you get to see him become the Wolfman, have his own story, and then run into these other characters and finally cure it. He does have shockingly a happy ending, which I think is rare with Werewolf Man stories.
You may have mentioned this and I missed it, but was he always played by the same actor?
Yeah, you know what? In the original movies, yeah. Which is pretty rare, because Dracula and the Frankenstein's monster and the Mummy were all played by different guys. Particularly the monster. The monster is played by a bunch of... I already mentioned the monster is played by a bunch of different actors. Even though Boris Karloff is the most famous one. Yeah, and actually Lon Chaney has played... from what I remember, he's played all the monsters. He played Dracula and Son of Dracula. I forgot when he played. I think he played. He was in Son of Frankenstein as Dr. Frankenstein, or the son of Dr. Frankenstein. I think he's played the monster too, and yeah, he was pretty much during the late 30s, during the late 30s, 40s. He was pretty much Universal's go-to guy at that point. Karloff and Lugosi had kind of moved on, and he was pretty much their star player at that point. So yeah, he'd done tons of stuff, and he passed away in the early 70s, like 1970 or something like that. He was one of his last films was a pretty good film called Spider Baby, directed by Jack Hill, and it was actually really good. He's done a lot of cheesy stuff in between those movies, but Spider Baby was a surprisingly effective film, and he's actually very good in it. He had a bit of a drinking problem, like a very big problem, and it did affect his career for a while. But he still stands. It's like he was very protective. Oh, he also played the Wolfman in Abbott and Costello movie, which is was it Meets Dracula, or he met somebody? But he was in that movie, and he did play the Wolfman in it. He was very protective of the role, and he felt like it was his. And actually, the Wolfman was an original script, because, Frankenstein and Dracula are obviously based on classic novels. Wolfman was new material, actually. So he felt a big ownership on it. So he pretty much felt like he put his staple and was very productive.
Hasn't there been some discussion in the last few years from Universal about doing a new grouping of these and trying to do their own like another shared universe because of what Marvel's done? But like, it's funny, we keep going back to Marvel, but there's kind of a reason, because I think they're talking about that. But then this time I would assume there'd be more of a continuity and it wouldn't be so loose.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's good reason why you and I have both mentioned the Marvel movies and the Universal monsters. Is I can't remember anybody else doing this kind of thing and doing it successfully outside of Marvel and the Universal monster. I believe Dracula Rising, that came out this past year, was supposed to be the beginning of such. I don't know how successful that will be. Because I don't know how well the movie did.
I was going to ask you, did that perform at all? I hadn't really heard it.
I don't know if it performed at all.
I didn't see it. It looked too much like I, Frankenstein, which didn't look very good to me, and I didn't see that either. And it reminded me too much of like Legion or something like that, and I couldn't get excited about it.
It made me think they were doing like a Nolan Dracula or something like that, but not as good.
I couldn't get excited about it, but I haven't talked to anybody about it. I don't know anybody that's seen it, actually.
I have not. Yeah, I have not seen it. I thought about seeing it because I love Dracula.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance to check it out. If you want, we'll talk about it in the future if I ever get a chance to see the film. But I know Universal's thinking about it, and to be honest, every few years they kind of, dust these monsters off for a new generation, which they should, frankly.
Yeah.
But I'm always a fan of the original Universal movies because they just have, I don't know, they have a nice classic kind of mythic quality to them. And even though some of them don't make any sense, sometimes you don't know what year or country they're supposed to be taking place in. Like, Europe is not a country. So,
no, it's not. It's not.
But you would think it is. And like, hey, Frankenstein just lives a mile away from Dracula or whatever. I don't know. It's just it's kind of like really hard. It's almost dreamlike in a way, like their continuity. But I will always sit down and enjoy one.
Well, thanks for that, man. I think that's the second Universal monster movie you've done on this show.
I think so. What was the other one?
I don't remember.
I talked about Blackula, which is not
one of those, but no, you definitely did one. We definitely have been through some of the Boris Karloff stuff before. But yeah, I don't remember what it was exactly. Today, and I don't have a great deal to say about mine, mostly because this is a major important classic that everybody should read, and I think mine's a book, and it's one of those things where I'll talk about it a little bit, and most people know the story of this, so I feel like I can probably even talk a little bit about the ending and stuff, but I won't go too much in depth because it's really important. Everybody should read it. I went with Animal Farm. George Orwell's Animal Farm, one of the most important authors and most important books of the 20th century. Animal Farm gets quoted everywhere. It's second only to 1984 in that as far as biting satires go, and it was written by the same guy. Have you, first of all, Manos, have you ever read Animal Farm or seen the old film?
I've seen the film. I read 1984, but I've never read Animal Farm.
I had never gotten around to it either, and I decided now was the time, seize the day. So I did it for this, and this is a really quick read. Animal Farm is not very long. It's a really short book, and that's because it's a fable. It's a modern fable, and it's not written as traditional narratives. So when you read this book, you shouldn't expect your standard like scene setups and descriptions of things, and the third person omniscient narrator is very, very loose, and it's actually I say omniscient, kind of, it's that way, but again, it's fable, so it's more like generalized, this is how these people felt about this, but we don't get inside of anybody's head. It's not, this guy in this moment was thinking about this, so it's much more, much more broad and relaxed, and it's about the specific events, and basically, I guess the best way to describe how something like this reads is it's 90% telling. You know, this does not have the show don't tell thing. It's not that kind of a book. It plays by a different set of rules. What Animal Farm is about, of course, famously, is it's the anti-totalitarian book. George Orwell was, of course, a card-carrying socialist till the day he died, and he believed in real socialism, but he, of course, didn't think that that's what they got from Stalin. And what this book was about, and he went on record famously to say this, and is sometimes some people don't believe that this is exactly what it was, what he was really doing, but what he claimed was that this was for future generations to try to help deter other countries, especially like other countries in the West and outside of Europe, if they embraced socialism, to not go the direction that Stalin did, to not be a totalitarian, despotic state. So the idea is you'd have with Russia, you had this state where it was supposed to be like everybody is equal, but ultimately whoever gets the power is corrupted, certainly, absolutely, and they see themselves as better than everyone, and they treat themselves that way, and then what they do is they twist everything to try to make everybody okay with being second-class citizens, or even slave labor without being called that. And that's what happens in this book. So the idea is, and it's funny too, because he calls it a fairy story. And what he means by that simply is this could never happen. It's a fable. It's not possible. And we've got a conceit, and we don't have to worry about the fact that animals are not sentient, self-aware beings that could do this. So the idea is, what if all the animals realized in a farm that they were being taken advantage of, and that man really wasn't any better than they were, and that they could do the job better, and that there was a lot more of them than there was of the one farmer who ran the place, and they took over and created their own society, and then ran their society fairly, and where everyone was equal. What if that happened? And so that's what happens. And the politics of this, of course, is what it's all about, and is really fascinating. And basically, what you're seeing is the creation of what starts off as a society that seems to be fair and balanced and makes sense, and indeed they do everything better. They're able to they're able to till the fields and do the crops and everything much more efficiently and effectively when they're not all starving. And so but then as time goes on, the pigs realize that they are a lot smarter than all the other animals, and that they are able to twist things, and as time goes on, it starts being a lot less of an equal state. And I say the pigs, it's really just one, which is how this often starts, right? You have one person who is, and we've seen this in history over and over and over again. You have the one person who is who gets like really power mad, really power stricken, and is able to get enough people behind him and give them what they want, that he can kind of twist things to where he's almost deified. And that's what we have here with a pig appropriately named Napoleon. And what ends up happening is you've got another leader character at the beginning who really is kind of the wise sage, named Snowball, and and actually, now that I think about it, that name is really interesting, because that's what happens. Everything snowballs after he leaves. I didn't pick up on that until just now. And so what ends up happening is he gets pushed out, and then Napoleon manipulates everyone and twists it to make it seem like he was actually in league with humans, who, of course, they are completely and utterly against. The main tenets of their society now, the main tenets are all about how man is bad, and doing anything that man did is bad, because look at how we lived. We don't want to live like that. And so basically the whole idea, and what the book is trying to say about the human condition is that when someone has too much power, it is very, very easy for them to be corrupted to the point where they become exactly the thing that they were fighting and rebelling against in the first place. And that's what the whole book is about. So it's, again, it plays by its own rules, so it's one of those things where if you're expecting just, like, you know, a good time and reading a book about, like, some really interesting characters, and then you're like, oh no, it's too preachy, well, it's almost a parable. It's supposed to be that way. That's what it's about. It's allegorical. And yet, even though it is about a message, and it's paralleling all these things that have happened in history, some of the characters are kind of compelling, and you do find yourself caring about certain animals, certain people in the book, and they all fit certain roles and archetypes in a society like this. For instance, there's a horse who does most of the work, and as the book progresses, he continues to push himself harder and harder and harder. He believes in all of the ideals of this culture, but he doesn't fully understand them because he's just not smart enough. And he creates the tenet. He's the first person who says Napoleon is always right, and how terrifying are the implications of that statement. Napoleon has always led us in the right direction before, so no matter what he says, no matter what he asks us to do, he's always right. And that's that's the idea and the tenet that leads them into the most trouble, to the point where, and this is a spoiler for anybody who might want to read the book, he ends up, as happens with societies like this, working himself to death. And basically, like, he believes in the system even well past it's actually working, and to the point where, by the way, the pigs, now that they have set themselves on a pedestal and above everybody else, and made everybody else kind of second-class citizens, they're acting more and more like men. And that's kind of the point, is that men are pigs and pigs are men in the context of this book. And what ends up happening is the more corrupt they get, the more they start acting like men. One of the early rules that they have is we will never walk on two legs. They start doing that. We will never drink alcohol. Well, they start doing that. And then they start manipulating the animals in changing the rules and saying that, oh, you just don't remember what because they can read now, a lot of the animals, and they say, oh, well, and then they'll, like, add a thing to a rule that was written down, and then they'll say, oh, you just forgot that, you should read it again. And so then it says, you're not, we don't drink alcohol to excess. And that goes all the way to one of the really famous lines and ideas from the book, right at the very end, which is all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And that's of course the big thing that permeated culture and that everybody remembers from Animal Farm. But anyway, so the where was I? I guess I was talking about the horse. So the horse ends up, as I said, kind of working himself to death, and he for all of his trouble, for everything that he's done, he gets sent off because the pigs are in league with some men now. He gets sent off to be slaughtered, and that's it. And so anyway, it's of course a really depressing book, but it's supposed to be. One of the things that's really interesting about Orwell, of course, is that he wrote this before the fall of the Soviet Union, and so he's. So like a lot of people thought at the time that he was writing this book to show all of like the problems with that actual state at the time, and he kind of was doing that, but he didn't know where it was where exactly it was going. And so it's really interesting because if this had been written later, and I'll talk about this in a second, there's a film adaptation that actually does it this way. He probably would. Are you
talking about the animated version?
No, I'm actually talking about a live-action version that was done for television, which I've never seen, but I read about it. And but anyway, and I'll talk a little bit about that animated one too, which was the only way that I had consumed this before I read it for this. I saw it when I was a kid, and it terrified me because it's really creepy, and I didn't realize how old it was when I was a kid either. I was like 54, really.
Wow,
yeah, it's that old. Yeah, it goes back that far.
I thought it was 60s. Okay.
One of the things also about that, I'm jumping all over the place, that's kind of creepy, is when you watch Charlotte's Web, the animation style is a little derived from Animal Farm.
It may have been. It could have been the same.
The same house? It might have been, because I think that was in the 60s, if memory serves. I haven't looked it up in a while, but yeah.
Maybe we could do that on a future episode.
Maybe we should. I haven't seen that in years, and I like a lot of the music from that movie. It'd be really cool to watch that again. But anyway, so
have you seen Watership Down?
I haven't.
Oh man, I saw that as a kid and was creeped out by that.
Oh no! Yes, I have seen Watership Down. Yeah. Yep. You're right. That is creepy when you're a kid.
Just because it has animals in it and it's animated doesn't mean it's for you.
Yeah. Anyway, so if Orwell had written this later, he might have had the pig state at the end get thwarted, but the idea at the time was what we're seeing are these states where these where these totalitarian dictators seem to be kind of incorruptible, and they take over, and then that's it. And that's what the '99 version does. Napoleon's regime totally collapses in on itself at the end of it, and that's to reflect what actually happened. But in this, it was more about a warning than it was about trying to have any optimism about what was going on right then. Because he could have actually had it collapse at the end, but that wasn't the point. It wasn't so much about saying. I mean, he was saying all kinds of things about what was going on in this is what I have seen and experienced, but it was about the future. It was, and just like 1984 was. Not that this is a futuristic novel, but it's about the future in that it's saying here's what not to do for the future. You have to keep to those principles that you create in the first place, keep checking yourself and make sure that you're not being this hypocritical. And after a while, it just becomes absolutely preposterous. And one of the things that I found really interesting reading this was because you're getting it mostly from the perspective of all of the other animals that are being subjugated. There are times I have to remind myself that I'm reading a somewhat unreliable narrator, where there are places where I actually feel almost a little bit manipulated myself, and that's unnerving. There's places where I'm like, oh wait, it's saying this thing is true that is not true, and there's a lot of irony. You know, he employs a lot of irony in this, and there's a lot of places where I have to remind myself, oh yeah, I'm getting this from the ignorant and sometimes gullible other animals that like aren't smart enough to understand what it is that's happening to them, and I get into their heads a little bit, and it makes me feel kind of stupid, and I think that's on purpose. Unless I'm just stupid. I think it's on purpose, where it's like it is so easy to fall into a trap of, you know, getting complacent and apathetic, where you're like, well, you want to trust your leaders, you know, you want to trust the people who are in charge, and they'll give you certain things where you'll think, oh, this is you know, this is what I want, so I can trust these people. But you know, then you look at the bigger picture and you see what do they have? How much do they have? If we are all equal, then how come they get to sleep in the house, and they get to sleep in the beds, and they get to drink all the alcohol? Why is that? You know, and of course the pigs make up a lot of reasons that they have to do that, about how difficult the leadership is, and how they need all that stuff. And anyway, so it's, you know, it's very unusual for me to get into politics and do political stuff, but Animal Farm is, as I said, a really important read, and it's one of those things where it's impossible to talk about without getting into some of those politics. But and I'm not gonna say it's not entertaining, because I think I actually enjoyed reading this. But I also, you know, was a little creeped out, because you're supposed to be. That's the, that's the point. As I said, there have been a couple of different adaptations of this. There was the 54 that we talked about, and then a live action version in '99. I don't know how you do this in live action. I did not know about that. I kind of want to see it now. And like I said, it's a little bit of a different interpretation, because they go ahead and go just straight to the fall of the Soviet Union, and so it's not about the same thing after that exactly. And then there was apparently supposed to be a new one that was announced in 2012, but apparently hasn't been talked about since then. That what I'm looking at here on Wiki, that says would potentially be directed by Andy Serkis. I could totally see Andy Serkis being involved in something like this if it was done in 3D animation, or if it was like live-action 3D mixed, because of the work he's doing right now in the Planet of the Apes series, which is just great, and I love what they're doing with Caesar in that. And so, yeah, if anybody was going to be spearheading a Animal Farm remake, I'd love to see Andy Serkis do it. That makes a lot of sense. Of course, tons and tons of pop culture references associated with Animal Farm all over the place, and interesting how much super geeky stuff has done it. But if you think about the ways in which you could adapt a lot of the things that George Orwell is saying in Animal Farm to futuristic, like dystopian societies, it makes a lot of sense that we would see this in a lot of science fiction. There was apparently an episode of Doctor Who back in '66 with the Daleks that had the that had a character in dealing with the Daleks say, though we are all equal partners with the Daleks on this great conquest, some of us are more equal than others. There is one of the cooler ones, I think, is and I remembered this now that I went back and read about it. The third episode of the X-Men animated series had Beast reading Animal Farm, and the implications that's really cool. I mean, the idea that Beast would be reading a book about two completely different kinds of beings that can't get along. One subverts the other one, and that becomes what they were in the first place. And the episode was Enter Magneto. That's really cool. Yeah. That's really cool. So there's some other stuff like that. But anyway, that's about what I have to say about Animal Farm. I don't know. One of the most important things in 20th century literature. Recommended to anybody. And like I said, pretty quick read. I think maybe 2.5 hours was all it took me to get through it. So.
Yeah, his novels are, well, his two main novels aren't very long. I mean, 1984 isn't that long either.
It's longer and it's more traditional narrative, but and it's in a guy's head. But you're right. It's not very long compared to a lot of other science fiction novels. It's not. I don't even think it's your standard 100,000 words.
Which is probably smart on his point, because what he's trying to do is give us a warning. Really, to really teach us something about his view on these particular issues. I think it's probably wise not to go too long into a narrative. I don't believe there's subplots or anything like that in these books. So he starts with essentially the theme and warning, and he really ingeniously through metaphor tells us these stories.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing that he was able to walk the line between preaching a message and creating an entertainment, because both of those are masterfully crafted, but are also really original, fresh ideas that permeated as much because they were a really interesting concept in the first place, as because of what they were talking about.
And they've stayed with us, too. I mean, even after... Animal Farm was more directed towards communist Russia, where 84 was more of a general warning of society and government. And they've both equally held up very well.
I think so,
because the lessons learned from Russia aren't something just Russians need to learn. I mean, it's just something for everyone needs to learn. Because, frankly, this kind of thing can happen anywhere, really. If a society is not careful, and should always be on guard about that.
Yeah, it's definitely still super relevant, and we see unnerving things in our society all the time that remind us of both of these novels, right? You know what I mean? Anytime that you think you're seeing freedoms being taken away, unnecessarily, but then you're told that it has to be that way, or that you're not really losing anything, that's always scary, and reminds us of things like Animal Farm.
I wonder what Orwell would say about Putin.
Yeah, good call.
I sometimes think about what kind of book would he write about that guy.
Yeah, well, and what's kind of interesting is that what he's one of the things he's saying, I think, with Animal Farm is that any society could get there. It doesn't really matter where you start. I mean, certainly a republic or a democratic society could certainly go in that very same direction. All it takes is one person who gets up to power. After all, this is the obvious example, but after all, it's not like Germany was anything like that kind of totalitarian state before Hitler took over, and he completely transformed it. Just completely transformed it.
Well, don't forget, Hitler was democratically elected. I mean, he wasn't a dictator first. He kind of slowly turned it into that. Under the guise of socialism and democracy, trying to create a. No one tells you they're the bad guy. And
yeah. Well, and sometimes the scary thing is when that person doesn't even realize that they're the bad guy, right? When they think it's actually necessary, and that it's the only way to keep your people safe, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Protection is often used as a reasoning.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've seen plenty of governments call themselves this, oh, hey, we're this nice socialistic society, and it's basically a dictatorship. And I've seen people do that with democracy, oh no, we have elections every year, I just so happen to get 99% of the vote. No one gets 99% of the vote.
It's funny too, because that's actually in Animal Farm. There's a scene where even after Napoleon has taken over and has been very much obviously the dictator for a long time, he cements it by democratically electing himself. He holds an election, nobody else runs, and then he's able to call it fair.
Yeah,
it's terrifying. And then the very end of the book, The thing I think that wraps it all together and cements it as a masterpiece is, I'm saying cement a lot, cements this as a masterpiece right at the very end is the pig, and once again, spoiler alert, the pigs and the humans that they used to be so totally against at an opposing farm are sitting together playing a poker game, which immediately reminded me of the painting with, like, the dogs. Like, it's just absurd. I was trying to figure out how they were even holding the cards, but so the pigs and the men are sitting together, and all the animals are outside peering in and watching this, because this is not supposed to happen. But this is like almost, I think, even like a couple generations now after it started, so a lot of the old animals are dead, and importantly, most of them can't even remember what life was like before this and when the men were in charge, and so they don't know the difference. And you get to the end, and at the same time, so like a pig and a man put cards down, and they each have the exact same card, and so somebody is cheated, and they go to blows. And this is like the optimism of the book, is that, like, okay, maybe this can't last, but they don't, like, straight up completely destroy it. It's a lot more optimistic than the ending of 1984. They come to blows, and in the commotion, the animals can't tell the difference between which ones are pigs and which ones are men. I love that. That's the image that totally sold it to me. Like, I think it's a really cool experience when you read a book and the last paragraph has the most impact. Or is like the big thing that you leave with, where it's not just like okay, we've resolved our story, we've wrapped it up. It's like, you can't have this book without that last paragraph. That's where it was all going, and that's why it's pigs in the first place. And it's really cool, because I spent the whole book going, why are pigs smarter than everybody else? Why pigs? I could not figure that out. I got to the end and I went, that's really cool. But anyway, so I guess that's all I've got to say about Animal Farm, Manos. I'm glad I finally got around to reading it.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. You know, I do remember actually talking about... Now, I said earlier I didn't read it. I actually did read it in high school, actually. Read it in the 80s, when I was in high school.
He read it in 1984. Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, not that long after 84. It was like 89 or something like that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, there was a discussion about, you know, communism and Russia. And, we watched the film, too, actually. We did the deal where we read the book and then watched the film. And, you know, the film does have that, like, optimistic view, like, people will eventually bring it down.
Right.
And I mean, this is 89. I mean, that actually happened very soon after that, actually. Now Russia's better or worse. I don't know. I mean, that's up to debate. But at least the world is better off. But, oh well, there's always the next problem.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching the Pop Culture Yearbook. As I said, Manos and I are back. We're going to be doing this every 2 weeks, or about every 2 weeks. And Manos, what year will we be traveling back to next time?
We are going to be talking about 1965.
1965. Do you know what you're doing yet?
Yes.
Oh, cool, cool. I don't yet, so I will have to do some research for 65. That is the year before one of my favorite years in history, 66, which gave us both Batman and Star Trek, which I would not be anything like myself if I did not have those things. And I'll be doing a top 10 60s Batman superhero rewind really soon, so it's going to be kind of fun to go back to the 60s and go right before that and do something right around that same time period. Manos, thanks for joining me. Glad we're doing this again. This was fun.
I missed it. I'm really happy to be doing the show again. Thank you for bringing it back.
Oh yeah, no problem. I wanted a little more well-roundedness on the channel. We talk so much about superhero TV now. I don't get to do stuff like this anymore. So yeah. Anyway,
it's fun to talk about something somewhat different.
Yeah. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks again for watching. We sure appreciate it. I'm Captain Logan,
and I'm the Real Manos.
We'll see you again next time.